Hi, I'm Preston Williams, and welcome to another edition of Jazz Talk. Today on our show, we have a very special guest, and I'm so excited to have him on today. He has been on the jazz scene for over 40 years and has worked with many greats from Art Blakey to Ron Carter, McCoy Tyner, Roy Haynes, Diane Reeves, and yes, even Robin Eubanks. He is a guitarist, composer, educator, and for 15 years, he was the leader, or actually, basically, he led the Tonight Show band with host Jay Leno. Please welcome to Jazz Talk, the greatest of all time, Mr. Kevin Eubanks. How you doing, man?
Oh, what a beautiful introduction, man.
Hey,
Much appreciated. Much
it's true.
appreciated.
It's true. Well,
Thank you,
man,
man.
like I said, you've been on the scene for quite a while. Kevin, everyone knows you, your music. And as I was saying at the beginning before we started recording this, I had your brother on a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about your upbringing. You are from Philadelphia, I believe.
Oh yeah, Philadelphia was everything that comes with it. The Eagles, the 76ers, the Phillies.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, growing up in Philly was music and sports.
Tell me a little bit about your background, how you got involved in music, because you come from a musical family. I mean, of course, your two brothers, all of them are musicians. But tell me about your particular background, because one of the things that I found interesting is that you didn't start on guitar; you actually started on trumpet and violin. Tell us about that.
Yeah, my first instrument was violin, and it always in the background was piano.
Okay.
My mother's piano teacher. So I always had that background of loving piano. My uncle Ray Bryant, and music was just part of the atmosphere of our household all the time, the whole family. So I had a crush on one of my mom's piano students,
Uh-huh.
and so when she would go down to take her piano lesson, I wasn't supposed to do this, but there was this shiny case in the dining room, and I just had to open it up one day just because it was Julius, really, because I was
Yeah.
7 years old. So what did I know? It's just like, oh, so I opened the case up and it was a viola in it. And from then, I said, hey, Ma, I want to play violin. And they said, no, you're not going to want to play violin. Where did that come from? Anyway, turns out that I started playing violin for the next 7 years. And as they uh, predicted, that you're not going to stay on the violin. And I didn't. After 7 years, I switched to 2 years prior to me leaving violin. I started playing guitar at 12.
Mm-hmm.
Started violin at 7, finished at 14, started guitar at 12.
Wow.
And it's one of my deepest musical regrets is that I should have stayed playing. Not that I shouldn't have played guitar, but I should have continued to play violin. I mean, could you imagine if I could really play violin by now?
Wow. Incredible,
and
man.
and uh, and still be playing guitar. I mean, that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think back, I was like, oh man, you had it. You had 7 years in. But in Philly, we had the bands going on, the neighborhood bands. It was so much fun. It was exhilarating. It was
Mm-hmm.
opening up everything, and at that age, 14, 15, 16, 17, you're hanging out, you're playing with all the other musicians in town. Every neighborhood had its own band.
Yeah.
My brother Robin, I was looking up to him because he was out playing with, different bands. So we started playing together in the bands, and the next door neighbors, crew had a band. And
Right.
so it it was just what we did. We went to the schoolyard and played ball, and we practiced and played music.
Man, that's great. And one of the things that I found interesting, Kevin, and I spoke to your brother about this, I did not know that your mother was Kenny Barron's first piano teacher. That's incredible, man.
I know, right?
Wow.
It's nuts. I see that picture of Kenny sitting on the piano bench with the Kenny Barron smile. And I'm like, man, we were in it and didn't know it.
Wow.
If we knew that, Kenny Barron was, you just didn't know it, but which was a beautiful thing because it was casual.
Yeah.
So it's just what we did. So we took it seriously. And I remember when I was 13, I was asked by a neighborhood band to play shows with him, but that was in, I was in bars. Now they call them, they're clubs now, and
Hmm.
they're really, it's really different from what, when I was playing at 24th in York, I think it was called the Chatterbox. I think that was the name of it. And my mom and dad got into it because my mother's a musician. My dad was a detective in the police
Right.
department under Frank Rizzo, by the way.
Mhm.
And so he's like, no, he can't stay and play at 13 years old and be in these bars and things like that. We're just not going to have it.
Mm.
And my mom said, well, Bill, if that's what he wants to do, because my mother came up with Ray and Tommy Bryant, and
Oh
so
yeah.
she was into it.
Mhm.
Said, let him do it, because I know that's what Ray was doing, you know.
Right. Right.
And my mom was playing gospel and classical music, and Ray was playing blues and jazz. So my mom got the better of that, discussion. So I was allowed to play even at 13, playing with bands, and so it just one thing turned into the next, into the next.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. And you, I guess from there you honed your skills, and from there you went on to Berklee, huh?
went to Berklee College, and back then there wasn't a whole lot of schools to go to. I'm so happy that a school like Berklee existed. There may be
Hmm.
a couple places, maybe in California and one other place, I can't quite remember now. It wasn't, you could go to any school and I don't know, study jazz or study this or something. You really, I was playing trumpet, and because I wanted to get into school playing some instrument. And a
Mm.
lot of back then in the kind of later 70s, there weren't a whole lot of places you could go. And I wanted to play jazz music or get a degree in it or have a certain kind of credibility in the schools. It hadn't happened yet. It was
Right.
just starting. Berklee was one of them.
Hmm.
So, and I had some other friends that went to Berklee. So I followed them and went to Berklee. So I wound up there because, and it turned out it was a really great school to go to. So it turned out
Yeah.
really good.
And that's what I was going to ask you about, Kevin. I mean, during your time there, I'm sure there were probably some other famous musicians that went with you. Was Marvin Smitty Smith, was he there with you at the same time? Or did
He
he go
was
there?
there. I was in there maybe a couple years before Smitty showed up,
Okay.
and I'm so glad he did. I'm so
Yeah.
glad Smitty came. Smitty and I have been playing, forever now, and oh
Yeah.
man, what a beautiful and what a great drummer, great
Oh,
musician.
yes, he is.
So
Yeah.
he and at the Tonight Show, he was invaluable to helping that whole thing be as successful as it was. He had my back, and the music, he's always in it. No matter who he's playing with, he's got your back. So I met Smitty, but I met everybody there: Jeff Tane Watts,
Yeah.
Branford Marcellus, Victor Bailey. I met so many people there. I know I'm leaving out people's names, but I musicians from Philly too. Tommy Campbell, Jerry Moore, Dwight Sutton. I mean, we all kind of knew what we wanted to do. And that made
Mm.
everything feel natural. Never thought about whether we're going to quote unquote make it or anything like that. I just had such a blast learning all these different things about music.
Yeah, yeah. And then the early 80s, you hit the scene, man, and started playing with some great musicians. How did you hook up with Art Blakey?
I
Wow.
hooked up with Art Blakey. This is funny. Um, uh, One day I'm in my apartment banging on the door. Somebody bangs on the door, open the door. Branford's there, and he says, "Kevin, come on, man. Art Blakey's in town. He's putting a group together, and he wants a guitar player. So let's go down to Lulu White's. This is in Boston. Go down to Lulu White's and sit in and see what happens." And that
Mm.
was it. Sat in, and next thing I know, said, "You got the gig. Let's hit it."
Wow.
So that was cool. I was like, "Thanks, Branford, knocking on the door yet again." and
Oh,
and Branford, when the Tonight Show thing came up, I was touring probably with Dave Holland, or I think it was with Dave during that time, and Mino Sinaloo and Dave. We did the record, the World Trio. I think that's the band we were touring with then. And ran into Branford on the road. And he said, "Are you still going to come to LA, right, and do the Leno show with me, right?" said, yeah, man, let's do it. Didn't hear from him for over a year, close to a year, something like that. So then I saw him again at a festival, and he said, 2 weeks, bro, we're gonna be out in Cali. You down? You still down? I said, in 2 weeks? I said, I didn't even know it was still. He said, yeah, man, yeah, it's on. You gonna do? You still coming, right? And I said, yeah, man. So went to my house. I was living in Allentown at the
Right.
time, and told my neighbors. Had beautiful neighbors, and I said, and my brother Shane. I said, Shane, you and Big Al, that was my homeboy in Allentown,
Right.
and taught me a lot. He's like a big brother to me in a lot of ways. And I said, Big Al, I'm going to California. You came through. I'm going to be leaving. He said, when you leaving? I said, in 2 weeks. He said, 2 weeks? I said, y'all can handle it, man. So my brother he still laughs at me. He said, man, I got to your house to make sure, I said, just divvy it up with whoever wants what. He said, you left orange juice, apple juice, you left fruit, you left it, man. What, were you running from somebody? You just took off. And I just gave the keys to my neighbor and said, who wants the stereo speakers,
Oh, man.
The crew was there. We knew who was there, because we used to hang out all the time. Said whatever anybody really needed and wanted, man. And that was it. And I left Allentown.
Wow.
And moved to California, also because of Branford. So Art Blakey, that gig. And then when I saw Branford says 2 weeks, we're gonna hit it, man. And that's how I wound up with the Tonight Show.
That's incredible. Wow, because you actually took over after Branford left, and it was 95. I mean, you had played on there before, but you actually became sort of like the leader of that band, what, 1995?
Right.
Yeah, wow, that must have been an incredible experience for you. And but I was going to ask you, I have you can confirm this, but I wanted to ask you something, man, and I'm sure you're going to laugh. I heard that you're a big look, you're laughing already.
What is this? I'm not getting set up. What's happening?
No, I heard that you're a big sports fan, man, like a big Philly sports fan, and I heard that you bet on a game one time with the 76ers lost, and they forced you to eat a corn dog. Is that true?
Oh my God. Oh yeah. Unfortunately, it's true. It's on video. It was. Oh man, Rick Fox. He was on that day.
Okay.
And he was the one that had to bring over the corn dog. And I don't even eat meat.
I know.
So and we lost Iverson, everybody, but they would go ahead Sixers. That was a great series.
Right.
And I love that. Coach Brown was coaching the Sixers then, but the show those are the shows that seemed like they lasted like 4 hours, because I knew at some point I was going to have to eat this corn dog. And Rick Fox comes in and just puts it in and said, you lost, bro. You lost. You gotta. It's like, oh man. It's like, oh man. All right. So I did it, man, and that was one of many things because of my sports allegiance to Philadelphia. I got dumped in a tub of Campbell's soup, right?
Okay.
Because the quarterback at the time was doing the Campbell soup thing.
Yeah.
So I lost that bet and got dumped into Campbell's soup, and all of this because of being a loyal Philadelphia sports fan.
Man,
that goes with it, man. It's fun though, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you just keep going with it and roll with the punches, man. It was cool.
And speaking of food, Kevin, I mean, you obviously you're in great shape. You have a special diet. You say you don't eat meat. Is it pretty much what, vegetables and like fish?
No, I'm vegan.
Okay, you're vegan. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
Vegan, I've been about 11 years now.
Oh man, that's great. That's great.
Maybe a little bit longer. And before that, I was vegetarian. Before that, I was pescatarian. Before I was that, ever since I was a kid. But make no mistake, when I grew up in Philly, it was cheesesteaks, hoagies. It was that, and I loved it. But every iteration of finding my way through life and through diet and food. And when I say diet, I don't mean losing weight. I mean diet of, you know, the contents of what you eat.
Right.
Um, and every step of the way, it kind of changes. And I loved every step of the way. I loved it when I was eating cheesesteaks and double cheeseburgers and
Right.
Shabazz steakhouses. That they were the best ones in Philly. The Shabazz
Yeah.
steakhouses were the bomb. You know, after rehearsal, we go there, we eat, we do, you know,
Yeah.
because we had the neighborhood band. That was like the most important thing to me at the time was, you know, playing in a band.
Yeah. That's
So,
awesome.
so yeah, I've been vegan for a long time, and it gets a little hairy sometimes on the road, but you get better at it.
Hmm.
You get smarter at how to eat when you're on the road, how to do it, and people think it's like such this agony. Oh, why don't you enjoy yourself? You know, you work so hard. Eat what you feel like eating. I am eating what I feel like eating.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
It's not
I know people
it's
say
not
that.
torture.
Right.
It's,
Right. Right.
you know, I love the food I eat. You know, I know how to cook it well now, and so it's not is it really it's a big deal health wise, but it's not a big deal to actually do it. I think
Mm,
it's just overhyped with this. Oh, you're vegan. Oh man, how you gonna eat? What are you gonna? Oh please, just sit down and eat. When you're hungry, you eat. If you want to
exactly.
eat vegan, you get better and better at it, and I can hook you up if it ever comes up, and we there's some pots and pans around. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Maybe you can cook for me. Maybe you've been a vegan for 20. Who knows, man? I don't know. So, but it's
Well,
you know it's not that big a deal. You
that's
know.
great, man. No, that's good. I'm glad you take good care of yourself. It's you know it shows. I was going to ask you, what was your perception being on that show? You know, getting on there. Of course, you meet Jay Leno, and obviously you guys hit it off well and have a good relationship. What type of an individual is look? You're laughing already. What type of an individual is Jay Leno, man?
Jay is so cool to work with.
Yeah.
He's so chill to work with. I've done the Tonight Show with him. I've opened up for some of his shows.
Hmm.
We've done things. We've traveled together for troops. We've been to Afghanistan. We've been to Aviano Air Base in Italy for troops went into Bosnia,
Yeah.
and we've done a lot of things together. And we just become friends after 18 years of working with somebody.
Right.
That all of that you can fake it if you want to try, but over 18 years, I don't. It's gonna be what it really is, you know.
Yeah.
So after all this time, and we had a great time on the show, which I think because we like when I first got to NBC, Jay and I would just talk in the hallway. We would hang out and we would talk. And when you know started getting into the show, and people said, "Well, where's Jay at? We got to run these jokes by him." And said, "Oh, he might be in Kevin's office, or I might be in his office, or some." We just naturally hung out, and we always just talked, and
That's
that
great.
became part of the show, part of the monologue, and everything. So, and even today, we call each other, "Man, did you see this movie yet? Just Mercy? Did you see this movie yet? You know, Green Book? Did you see this book? Did you see this movie or whatever?" And if it's something or something happens in the news, he'll call me. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? And then I ask him. You know, it's a, you know. Uh, so after a while, you don't really look at each other just as work colleagues or anything. It's just dude named Jay, dude named Kevin. We just hang sometimes, and that's it. You know,
That's
it's kind
great.
of cool now. You know?
You know, like I said, you were there for 15 years, and of course, what 2010 or whatever, I guess you moved on and wanted to, I guess, focus on other things. And as I said at the top of the show, you've worked with so many great artists, from Diane Reeves, you know, Roy Haynes. You know, someone that I wanted to ask you about, what was it like working with McCoy Tyner, man?
McCoy, I only had a brief time hitting with McCoy because he had a big band, right?
Okay, okay,
And so I got to work with McCoy for maybe a month doing I think he did 2 weeks at the Vanguard, and there was one other stint that we did. So on the resume it looks like, oh yeah, I played with McCoy Tyner, but it really was like a month. So I like to say, yeah, I played with McCoy, yeah,
right.
for a whole month, you know.
I
It's like
got
with
you, man.
Jimmy Smith. I got
Yeah.
to play with Jimmy Smith for 1 week
Mm,
because Phil Upchurch couldn't make it for a week, and that was in L.A. And Tommy Campbell was playing drums, and that's Tommy's uncle. he always called when we go and say, "Oh man, you got to meet Uncle Jimmy. You gonna love playing Uncle Jimmy." Finally, I get a call and Phil says, "Kevin, I can't make this gig with Jimmy. So could you do that with me at Catalina here in LA?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, man, definitely," because I grew up listening to Jimmy Smith and Kenny Burrell,
Mm,
and so. But just like McCoy, that was only 1 week. That's the only time I got to play with him.
yeah.
Was that 1 week. So even though on the resume it looks like, yeah, I didn't put down I played with Jimmy Smith. McCoy, I couldn't resist it. I just said,
Right,
well,
right.
it was a month. It's a month,
It counts, you know. Right, right.
maybe nobody will ask me that unless I get on an interview and somebody says, "How was it?" So I gotta
Yeah,
fess up. It was only a month.
yeah. It's
And,
still a month though. I mean, you played with one of the most influential pianists of the last 50, 60 years. So
oh
that's an
man.
accomplishment. McCoy is one of my personal favorites. And also Dave Holland, man. Love him. And I know your brother worked with him for a number of years. What was it like playing with Dave?
Y'all, Dave, we still play together.
Yeah.
It's great playing with Dave. We've been playing music for a long time together. In the I'd say like started in the later '80s.
Hmm.
Before moved to California, and we just have a natural affinity to play with each other. So we just I don't know. We don't really have to talk about music that much when Dave and I play. We hit it,
Mm.
and I think part of that is because we both played with Sam Rivers. Dave played with
Yeah.
Sam for a long time. I played with Sam for like 2 years in a row.
Right.
That was a wonderful experience. I was just coming out of playing with Slide Hampton and Roy Haynes, and Sam called me up and said, "Oh man, I heard you the man. Uh, 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 you want to go on out?" And he has a funny laugh when he said, "You want to go on out with me?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, Sam, sure." I had no idea what it was going to be like. A friend of mine, bass player Ray L.
Hmm.
Wesley Grant, recommended me. He was playing with Sam. He said, "Well, meet me at the airport." I met him at the airport, and for the next 2 years we played,
Wow,
and it was wonderful. So
man.
it's just how things work out. But I think the way Sam, gets you to understand the music from his vision,
Hmm.
and I think that helped Dave and I find this common ground that was just a fulfilling thing to do,
Hmm.
because playing with these people like Roy Haynes and Art, all these wonderful people and all the piano players that I got to play with at Bradley's, and
Yeah.
then so that made me cherish the brief moment that I had to play with McCoy Tyner. So, but that's like going to different schools.
Yeah.
So playing with Sam Rivers is like going to another school, and it was, and playing with Oliver Lake a little bit before that, that really opened me up a lot too. We lived a few blocks from each other in Brooklyn. Um, so I got to play when I started to play with Sam, I really was ready for it. And I had
Yeah.
a beautiful time. We would talk about all kinds of things, he says, "Man, you're comping and how you play with me is great." He says, "Just look at me as the comet and you're the tail that gives me that lift, that elevation, and blah, blah." He says, "I love it, man. I love it."
Wow.
So we're all constellations going around and we're different. We had these conversations about it. I said, "Oh man, it's not just a big old rock spinning around the sun. Man, this is alive. It's," and we would talk about these things right before we stepped on stage. So when we came on, we were just like, whew, it was beautiful, man. And so
Unbelievable.
Dave and I, when we started playing together, we were like, whoa, this is really natural to play with each other. So to this day, we still love playing together. So it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride. Just
That's
the
great.
magic of music.
Now, I was going to ask you, Kevin, you're also an educator too, and I believe you taught at Rutgers. Do you enjoy teaching? Is that something that you still do? I mean, of course, with the COVID going on, I mean, do you like teach or have any classes like online or do anything like that?
Um, well, just to give it a little background, my mother taught music for 35 years, master's degree in music education. I
Mhm.
went to Berklee for music education. My brother Robin taught at Oberlin as a tenured professor there for like 20 years.
Right.
So my one of my other brothers, Shane, he got a, degree in education. He was teaching. So we come up. Dwayne is teaching now in Brooklyn. So that's kind of in our spirit to do that.
Hmm.
And so teaching is just part of the whole experience
Yeah.
of it. But I shouldn't say but because that's always seems to sound negative. What I learned about teaching is that it's not, I think it's more of a learning process. The student, and I don't like
Hmm.
the word student, and I don't like the word teacher so much because it gives a connotation that I don't think has much to do with learning.
Right.
The teacher should inspire, or if we're lucky, we get to inspire a student. And if the student, for lack of a better word, I would say they're learning. The learning piece of the puzzle
Hmm.
is if they're self-motivated and if they
Yeah.
want to learn. And if you can touch that for what, however, not, it's not like you go in a room and say, oh, I'm going to play a great solo, I'm going to write a great song, I'm going to teach this person. There has to be some communication that perhaps is not done in words.
Mm.
Somehow the student, the person that is looking to learn from the person that has experience and that can touch that person, that inspiration will give them something inside of them that wakes up and they want to learn. They're
Yeah.
open to learning. Their defensiveness goes away. They want to learn. They want to learn. I think it starts with the person that wants to learn,
Mm.
not necessarily with the teacher. The teacher is there, uh, but if it's not in the person that wants to learn, I mean, I think that's the core of it, is the aspect of learning
Yeah.
and inspiring, and however that may happen. My mother has friends, she calls them her daughters, and I've known these ladies since 8 years old,
Mm.
and she taught them when they were that old,
Yeah.
that young, and maybe about 15 years later, I said, "Ma, who are these people? I've seen these people in the house my whole life.
Right. Right.
Where did they come from?" Oh, she was my student from Pickett, and she was my student from this school, from Salzburger Junior High, from this. I said, so these are ex-students of yours? I said, yeah, they just became family. And that's when somebody inspired somebody else.
That's
So
beautiful. Yeah.
the whole thing is you have to be willing to learn. You have to, and you will.
Yeah.
As far as the teaching, and I think it's more creative than that. Than I'm the teacher,
Mm.
you're the student, play this scale, do that. Hey, if you don't want to learn the scale, you know,
Yeah.
come
Oh, I
on,
know.
man. This, show yourself that you're self motivated
Right.
and be curious and want to do it. And otherwise, at that point, no, I don't like that, because then you make me into the teacher. I'm not
Right.
trying to be the teacher.
Yeah.
I'm there to help. That's all I'm there for, is to help. And if there's some connection, between the two of us, not just the teacher talking to the student, but two individuals that have some common ground, but we don't know what it is yet. And once we find that common ground, now we can communicate. Now we can have a conversation, not me dictating or you being defensive, or I mean, that you're younger, not really younger age, any age. No one likes to be spoken down to. Nobody likes to be taken for granted that they don't know anything because
Right.
they're coming in as, I'm the student and you're the teacher. Those words seem to put a wall up against true exchange and
Mm.
open learning. And it might not even be anything about music.
Yeah.
I had a student, to for your question, I'm doing some virtual teaching. I just finished 5 weeks of doing virtual teaching.
Mm.
And one of the students I had, she thought we were talking about music. And the whole thing we were really talking about was she needed to free herself.
Yeah.
She had to stop being afraid of it. She comes from a country where a lot of things were etched in stone, were all in the box. And so just sing whatever you feel like singing. She didn't play guitar. She was a singer, vocalist. And so just right now, just sing anything you want to sing. Just let it out. And she didn't have a clue what I was talking about. But it wasn't a musical thing because the country where she came from, everything was dictated to her. To
Yeah.
do this, to do that. If you're in a class, you do what the teacher says to do, and that's it. You don't get to ask questions. And I felt that. So we had a nice discussion by the fifth week. Said it's not a musical thing. You have a beautiful voice. You're focused. You work hard. You have to allow yourself to be free. And I think because she sang opera, and she said, I want to sing jazz. I want to sing other types of music. I want to do this. You want to free yourself. That's what you're really after.
Yeah.
You know? And
That's
she
beautiful.
comes from one of those countries that did not have people listening to jazz during the part of, the era, whatever wars were going on, whatever, it's a communist country and blah, blah. So there's a reason why jazz wasn't allowed in certain countries. And that's what from traveling, you get to hear that. I mean, the different countries, we weren't allowed to listen to jazz, even Valerie Pointemar played with, I mean, when I was playing with Art Blakey. It's the sense of wanting to have some freedom.
Yes.
And that pulls it, so she's talking about music. I'm talking about you have to free yourself. And musicians, we have to do the same thing. We make our own boxes.
Yeah.
Stay in there. So, so teaching is just another journey. I don't see it as I'm the teacher, that's the student. Or when I was studying with Ted Dunbar, that's how I got to teach at Rutgers University. Ted was the guitar instructor there. Kenny Barron was there too at the same time, I think. And Ted took a year off, and he said, Kevin, would you teach at Rutgers take my classes for a year? And I said, sure, but I have a bargain for you. And he said, what, man? I said that I'll teach all your classes for a year, and I won't take a dime. But I can get a lesson from you anytime I want. I mean, anytime, Ted. If I want to stay at your house for 6-8 hours, showing me something, telling me something that I don't know. I want to embrace. Can we do that? And then everything, you only have to say anything. Checks come right to you, blah, blah. I said, man, it's just going to be a year. I'm going to wear you out this year because I want to learn something. Because what are you playing? How'd you come up with this stuff?
Right.
And he was just such a beautiful man.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll teach you anything you want. And he was in the numerology, astrology, palmistry, anchrophonology, this and that, the Lydian chromatic scale syndrome, all of this stuff. And I was, whoa. And so again, you feel like you're on a journey, not, I'm here, this person's there, and this and that. It's just open up to life. Just keep an open mind. It's not just this type of music or just that type of music. This is spherical. It's not linear. We're in orbit. We're moving. We're not sitting still. It's not natural to just be still. And in our learning, in our creativity, it's the same thing. We're moving. Maybe up here we're not moving, but in here, it's all, it's all embracing things. It's why kids are so lovely, man. They come out, it's cool. They're born, everything that comes in is like, and then we teach them, no, you can't do that. But I just learned to run. You took like 20,000 pictures of me my first step. Now I take a step. You say, oh, don't go over there. Don't go over there.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? We start limiting, wow, they're taking that. Wow, it's on the table. Don't touch it on the table. But you just took like another zillion pictures of me. Isn't that cute? He just took the thing off. But don't touch that. Don't eat that. Don't, So after a while, we get our own boxes, and then we get into music, and we say, well, that's not jazz, or that's not funk, or that's not this. So it's, man, I get carried away when it comes to that because
No, I
that's
appreciate you sharing that, man. No, that's good information. I was going to also ask you about this honorary doctorate that you got from Berklee, man. What was that like receiving that?
wow. That was great, and I think some of that came from well, I would say a lot of it came from the relationship I have with Roger Brown, who's the president of
Yeah.
Berklee College, and 'cause, well, I won't go too far in the background, but when Roger became president of Berklee, then I realized I was an alumni of Berklee College. And Roger and I got along great. Roger's a drummer. He listened to a record when he was still in the student phase of his career. And he had my first record that I did. And Tommy Campbell was playing drums on it. And Roger is a drummer. And he heard this record. Roy Haynes was on that. Ronnie Barrage was on it too.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin David Eubanks. Oh man. And anyway, he got in touch with me and said, I want you involved with the school some kind of way. We have to work this out. Listening to your record made me feel different about jazz. It can be really aggressive, almost electric, and this and that. It just had an aggression to it because I grew up playing guitar. So I was playing rock music. I was playing fusion music. I'm talking about the fusion music in the 70s. It was My Vision Orchestra, Return to Forever, Yes, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, stuff like that. But I also came up with Sly Stone, and blah, blah, and all that. But all of that came in because I play guitar. Guitar is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So he really dug it. And he says, we have to get you more in touch with Berklee. And he says, I've been following your career, and you really changed my head a lot about listening to this kind of music and that kind of music. And
yeah,
he says, I would, let's just get together and see what we can, put our heads together. Before I know it, he says, we want to honor you with an honorary doctorate.
Oh man.
So, and I was working the show then. I can't remember exactly when it was. So my dad came in and, because for the actual ceremony, when you do that and people play your music, and I couldn't make it. I was working either on a show or I was on tour or something, but I couldn't make it. And so my dad did it for me.
Gotcha.
So he went to Berklee, and Roger, he's the one that got the, got the honorary doctorate and the leather brief and everything. It was really cool. So I think it worked out beautiful that way, because my whole life I've really wanted to make my mom and dad proud. So
hey man, you definitely have. You definitely have. That's beautiful. Yeah.
So music is wonderful. I have a question for you.
Please.
Are you a musician?
Former trumpet player. Trumpet player. I'm a jazz aficionado. I mean, I know the music, and I've had everyone on my show. I got Al DiMeola this afternoon after you, John McLaughlin next month. I've had Billy Cobham, Ron Carter. Everyone's been on the show.
Man.
So, and I just started
Please
this.
Say
I just
hi
started
to these
this.
people.
Oh yeah,
me.
I just started the show. Yeah.
That
started the show.
Music thing in the 70s was John McLaughlin.
I had Chick Corea on a couple of weeks ago. Chick Corea was on.
Oh yeah, man, that's beautiful. So I was wondering, because I know you can feel another musician a lot of times, and I said he moves,
yeah, I know the music. I know the music real well, man. Yeah.
So how do you feel? I'm not trying to corner you or anything.
No, please ask me.
How do you feel about jazz music today? That's a terrible. It's not the question I really want to ask.
No, you know what? I can answer that. I like the question. I think a musician that I really like a lot, and I'm sure he's a friend of yours, Pat Metheny. He actually guy asked him a similar question, Kevin, and the guy says, how do you feel about jazz music today? And Pat says, well, he says, I like a lot of the old guys, from Charlie Christian to a lot of the Wes Montgomery, George Benson. He was naming all these guys. He says, I like to play a type of jazz music today that has not been played before. And Dizzy Gillespie said it best. You got to keep one foot in the past and one in the future. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that the music is in good hands. You have some great young talent out there today, and I think the music is just going to just keep moving. And of course, people look back, we look back, Miles Davis talks about he never looked back. And I had Lenny White on the show recently. Lenny's like, that's a lie. He said, Miles always looked back. He said he had to. But no, I think jazz is in good hands. And with musicians like yourself, man, I was just going to say that performance that you did at the Mid-Atlantic Jazz Festival was incredible. I was sitting there and it was mesmerizing. I'm like, man, I said, that's a deep piece that Kevin played. And I was like, I didn't get a chance to really chat with you about it. I just met you afterwards and we snapped the photo. But that piece that you did was incredible. And I love your writing, man. Not just your playing, but as a composer, some of the stuff that you come up with is just deep. It's
Man,
awesome.
thank you.
It's awesome,
Thank you.
And I was listening to some Grant Green earlier. Like I said, all of you guys are my favorites. Like I said, John McLaughlin next month. I got Al Di Meola on this afternoon. I've had Patrice Rushen, just so many great musicians on the show. But I'm so glad I had you on today, and it's been a pleasure you being on Jazz Talk. Hold on, I'm about to close out the show. Well, you've heard it from Mr. Kevin Eubanks. And as the saying goes, if the music grooves and makes you move, it must be jazz. I'm Preston Williams with Jazz Talk signing off. Peace.